You can't throw a football today without hitting AI somewhere. But what are some areas where you can bring AI into your private practice? Well, my guest today is working on just that, and she's going to share some of her ideas with us. I'm Carl White, principal at Mark Advisory Group, which is a healthcare marketing agency, and I'm also the host of Practice Care. The mission for both is the same, and that's to help private practice owners stay private. Not only is that usually what they want, but care is better when the provider owns the practice because that's when they're going to have the most freedom to make the clinical decisions for their patients they think is best. It's just different when somebody else owns the practice. Eventually, usually, sometimes their agenda starts to creep into the provider's ear, gives him or her more to think about. Let's just keep it private and get all that out of the way. My guest today is Dr. Rachel Draelos. She is a physician scientist and the CEO founder of Cydoc, that's CYDOC, a health AI company. The Cydoc Smart Patient Intake Form interviews patients using medical reasoning, then generates a focused HPI subjective section of a medical note, saving about 10 minutes per visit. Cydoc's overall mission is to create the first AI-native EHR. Dr. Draelos was the first person to graduate from Duke University with both an MD and a Ph.D. in computer science, and has published research across multiple areas of artificial intelligence for medical applications. She's also the author of a popular AI and medicine blog, Glassbox. Rachel, thank you for coming on Practice Care.
Thank you so much for having me.
Yeah, the world is hungry, starving, thirsty, whatever, for AI information, helping us make sense of it. In my inbox, 2 to 3 times a day, I get an email about some new AI application. It's hard to keep up with. So hoping you can wrestle this to the ground and make sense of it for us, at least to a degree. Let me start, however, where I start with every guest. The bio I just read was short. That's what I asked for. Please tell us more about yourself. Fill in some of the gaps for us.
Absolutely. So as you mentioned in the bio, my background is in both medicine and computer science.
Mm-hmm.
I was at Duke University for 8 years, and while there did first part of my medical degree, my PhD in AI, and then the last part of my medical degree. So it was a fun blend of lots of different topics and lots of exciting things to delve really deep into. In terms of what I worked on during my PhD there, I had the privilege to work on many different projects, many of them healthcare AI related, some of them pure AI. So I worked on automated interpretation of CT scans using AI. I worked on predicting which mutations will cause disease. I worked on predicting whether patients will get admitted to the hospital or not based on their medical records. And then I also worked on some kind of fundamental AI work to help understand how certain types of models work, specifically image models, and making a method that could highlight parts of an image that a model used when it makes a prediction, which is super important for making sure the model is not doing anything funny.
Right.
And then since completing that training program, I've been working on my startup Cydoc, where we've built this form that can help doctors save time on note writing. So really excited to be here today.
Yeah, and I love the 10 minutes because if you think, like my primary care doctor probably sees, I don't know, 25 patients a day, maybe more. So if you're telling me, what is that, 250 minutes, that's 4 hours. My God, it just sounds material. So we're going to get into that. But let's jump into it. So give us kind of the landscape that you see AI applications in private practice today. It's a very broad ask of you. So if any way you want to organize it or boil it down, what are you seeing out there?
There is definitely a lot going on. So there's a couple of different ways that I break it down. So one way is in terms of what is it that the AI application does. So there's a couple of different areas in a private practice where AI can be useful. I can just run through a few of them. So one of them is note writing. That's obviously my favorite at the moment, since that's what I've been working on. And there's a few different ways that people are using AI in that space. So, so one way is what we're doing at Cydoc, where our AI system takes the history from the patient through a very simple form interface that can be accessed on a phone or a computer, really any device, and then transforms that Q&A data into the HPI or subjective section of a note, detailing specifically why is that patient there and any relevant parts of the history based on whether chief complaints are. So, so that's what we built out, and we found there's really significant time savings because on the history taking side, it has already asked some of the questions that otherwise the physician would need to ask. And then on the note writing side, there's a chunk of the note already drafted out. So we're super excited about that. And for anyone listening, we are currently at the moment offering free trials. So you're welcome to reach out if that's interesting to you.
Okay.
Also on the note writing side, there are a lot of dictation applications, and those have been around for a while, but they've just gotten a lot better recently with AI. So there's several different companies that are offering dictation solutions that are AI based to help with note writing. Then if we go into other aspects of practice, on the billing side, there are multiple companies, both larger companies and startups that are working on automated billing solutions that are based on AI. So those can, for example, automatically predict what codes you might want to use to bill a visit. And then there's a smattering of miscellaneous AI applications. So another one would be helping with prior authorization paperwork and doing some automated generation of parts of that as well. So really any aspect of practice that involves something written down, there's probably someone out there who's working on an AI solution for it. And then I'll just quickly note, there's another way to break it down, which is how do you access the AI solution? So there's a set of apps that are built into certain EHRs. And so you have to be using one of those EHRs in order to access that AI system. And then there's a set of applications that are, I'll just call them EHR agnostic. And so you can use those regardless. And that's another way I like to break it down.
Okay. So a couple of follow-up questions. So just for me on the note-taking solutions, when you say they're a lot better, they're just more accurate, they're faster, like what's better about them?
Yeah, so if we're talking about specifically dictation, where you'll talk and they'll do speech to text, the main improvements there have been in accuracy. So the really old speech to text systems, they would get a certain percentage of words wrong, and then you'd have to go back and manually go in and fix them. And now the modern ones are much better at picking up specifically what it was that you said. So that's I would say the main way that they've improved. And then just in note taking in general, on the side of taking histories and automatically generating notes from patients, that's fairly new technology that actually hasn't previously, it hasn't been around nearly as long as dictation.
Okay. All right, cool. Thank you for that. So the next question, it struck me. So private practice medicine is highly, highly regulated, in many ways justifiably so. I'm sure there could be a raging debate about some of the edges of it, but nevertheless, highly regulated. AI right now is anything but. It's like Wild West. Anybody who wants to fire up a new AI solution is easy to do, and there's nothing really regulated about it. So how do highly regulated private practice owners, practice administrators, et cetera, think smartly about unregulated solutions? It just seems like there's like little it's like a minefield, or it could be. It's a very negative way, but let's be eyes wide open about it,
Absolutely. I think that's a super important question, because the Wild West description, very apt. It's just crazy in AI right now. It feels like every week there's more websites popping up that claim to have some magical AI solution for healthcare. So that's pretty overwhelming. And I think one really concrete starting point is just figuring out, is that solution HIPAA compliant? So they should say somewhere on their website that they're HIPAA compliant. If they're doing anything that involves patient data, there should be somewhere that it says we are HIPAA compliant. And so, for example, my company, we went through the HIPAA compliance process. We made sure that we set everything up securely, very thoughtful about it. There are definitely some startups out there where you got to ask just to know, have they done all of that?
But I will tell you, because I do the same thing. They should say they're HIPAA compliant, or they should say we are not. But I at least in my little world here in the marketing side, many don't, or they don't do it in an easy to find way. So if you're not sure, just keep digging. And if you like the application, but I'd say call them and just ask them, because sadly, many just don't. So anyway, keep going, but they should. You're right.
Yeah, I mean, and it's something where I would, in terms of, saving your time, if you spend 2 minutes on their website and you can't find it, the easiest way is just call them, or filling out the contact form too. A lot of times they'll have a contact form. Just say, hey, are you HIPAA compliant? Someone should be able to get back to you and say, yes, we are. Or if you don't hear back from them, then maybe that's not the best.
Especially if they're advertising in the health space, you would like to think they kind of, connected those dots and said, we ought to tell people if we are. But anyway, you're right. Yes, not all dots get connected. Okay, keep going. Sorry.
Yeah. So then I think that's one starting point. And then just another question I think would be good to ask, if you get to a point with an AI solution where you're interested in trying it out and you're talking with someone at the company about getting it set up for your practice, one good question to ask is, what kind of AI is this? And what steps have you taken to make sure that it's safe? So there's a huge range of different kinds of AI models out there,
Hmm.
and some of them are safer than others.
Hmm.
So it's good. They should be able to give you a solid answer saying, hey, this is the kind of AI it is, blah, 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 a couple sentences. And then here's what we've done to make sure that this is going to be trustworthy or accurate or reliable and do what you want it
Yeah.
to do.
Yeah. Okay. What do you think of this? I've heard some advice that says, if a software tool you're using, let's say your EHR or something else, says, "Hey, we have a new AI feature." That's maybe not a bad place to start, because you'd like to think that they've, vetted it and validated it, and it's part of something you're already using. Doesn't mean you have to use it, but it might make sense, and that might be a decent place to start. What do you think of that?
Definitely. So a lot of these EHRs that allow either in-house AI that they then integrate or a third-party AI that they then integrate do have certain steps already in place within their companies to make sure that certain rules are followed. So that's definitely a good starting point, is if you see something pop up, new AI feature, and you want to try it,
Yeah.
that you should be very thoroughly vetted.
Yes. Should you? Yes. In the realm of, boy, you'd like to think. Wouldn't that make sense? That sounds a lot reasonable to say, but still, check it out. Make sure. I'd say ask the same questions Rachel just highlighted, even if it's from a service you already use or subscribe to, because you never know. You never know. You're still regulated, whether or not they went through those steps. You still need to know those things. Where do you see the future of AI? An equally broad, difficult question, especially for private. I mean, not generally, but in private practice. So if we say today, work on, smart to do things that are automated, smart to do things. If I had to just sort of characterize the types of applications you were describing a few minutes ago, I'd say maybe more on the administrative side, which is valuable, right? There's a lot of time and money spent on getting documentation together, getting invoicing together, coding, et cetera. That's real. Is that where you see it for a while? Or, like, if you look a few years down the road and maybe turn the corner, what's exciting to you about AI in private practice? Maybe that's a better way to ask it.
For me, the most exciting thing is helping with the administrative work. So that is a bias I have, and those
Okay.
are the solutions I tend to keep the most track of, just because it's an aspect of having a private practice and practicing medicine that is not always people's favorite. And
Yeah.
generally speaking, people want to be spending a lot less time doing administrative work. So I see that as a really powerful and beneficial application of AI in medicine, to alleviate kind of documentation, paperwork, bookkeeping kinds of burdens, so that doctors are free to think about their patients, interact with their patients, and do the kind of medical part of medicine more so than the paperwork part. However, it is true that there are people working on other kinds of medical AI applications. So there are people working on predictive models for diseases, or I've talked to more than one person who says, I want to start a company to make an AI doctor. And I
Good
always
luck.
tell them, you kind of pick something narrower than that, because
Yeah.
doctors do hundreds and thousands of different things. And my personal view is that if we ever got to a point where there was some combined AI robot system that could replace a physician, then there's going to be nobody left on earth who has a job, because
Yeah.
there's just such a huge range of things that doctors do, that it's really not a trivial thing to
Yeah.
to automate even one small piece of that. So I guess the short summary is, personally, I'm most excited about the relieving the administrative burden using AI. And there are people interested in working on diagnostics. And I think there's some really interesting kind of more clinical applications of AI there too. So for example, systems that could potentially do background medical error checking,
Hmm.
and have actually useful alerting in EHRs, instead of just having constant alerts all the time that aren't necessarily useful. Maybe there could be a more sophisticated system that would say, hey, here's this potentially obscure thing that could be an
Hmm.
error or something to take another look at.
Hmm.
I also think that there could be ways to leverage AI to help people with behavior changes. So a lot of preventative medicine revolves around really difficult behavior changes, and there are companies out there working on ways to have, for example, AI chatbots that could help kind of be with patients as they're trying to do these behavior changes. So
Yeah.
yeah, very, very wide range of applications.
Yeah, but I mean, and it's all very exciting. But as you were saying it, I was thinking, she's right. The administrative side, my God, we're just scratching the surface. If you even could say it's as far as scratching the surface, right? I mean, imagine a world where, I don't know, the doctor's finished with the appointment and they hit submit, and all the coding happens, and all the notes happen, and all the everything that's supposed to flow wherever it's supposed to flow, even if it's supposed to flow in more than one place, goes there. And just imagine, and wouldn't that be amazing? A lot of people who are spending time staring at screens in a practice would no longer have to stare at screens for nearly as long as they do. Wouldn't that be cool? And there's just like a mountain of value to be, it seems to me there's just a mountain of value to be gained there. I mean, I just had a doctor's appointment a few days ago. It's half screen time, half exam time. And I get it. And he's good at sort of, looking while he's chatting, but wouldn't it be great? And then he wasn't staring. Oh, there's another 20 minutes later today. I've got to remember what I said and document. So it would be, that just sounds great. I mean, getting rid of the important but lower level administrative work off of the plate of people, of everybody. That sounds fantastic. Even though boring, right? But important. Boring can be important. Administrative work is important, even if it's boring. So that sounds great. So a couple of wrap-up questions I ask every guest. This episode is a particularly good example of, man, we could spend a lot more time talking. However, we are bite-sized advice here at Practice Care. So the first question is there anything you think I should have asked you? We were pretty broad and pretty high level, I get it. But is there anything you think that we should have covered that I just didn't ask?
I think you asked great questions, and probably the last thing I would want to add is that I know there's a lot of anxiety around AI, particularly in medicine, and I think that comes from medicine, very rightfully so, being wanting to be very careful around patient care, and I think
Right.
that that's right.
Yeah.
So I think with AI, it's good to be cautious about it, but on the anxiety side, I think it can be helpful too to consider that there are specific ways that AI could help with very real concrete problems today. So it can help with note writing, it can help with billing, and it's worth considering that there can be benefits to it, even if there is some anxiety around it as kind of a very newly popular piece of
Yeah.
technology.
Yeah. I mean, it's like, it's sort of I don't know if it's as large as a revolution. I don't know. But my point is, it presents a very big change from how things are done today. It could, and yes, it's early, but there have been times like that in our past where that's happened, and eventually you ought to embrace it because it's not going to stop. So the sooner you kind of get on board with experimenting and with being positive about it, probably the better. So the other wrap up question I ask is, so we've caught it all listeners' attention. They're excited by this. Like, you know what? She's right. She's right. We should look at this, but they don't know where to start because AI is vast. So if a private practice owner or somebody to practice it, where do we start with this? Give me something to start with. What would you tell them to do? Something
I
simple,
would
practical. They can just kind of get going.
Yeah, absolutely. I would say that an easy way to get started is pick something in your practice that you really want help with, a specific kind of task or subcomponent of a thing that you do, and
Mhm.
then spend just 10 minutes on Google whatever that thing is. So, if it's notes, if it's billing, if it's prior authorizations, anything, scheduling, just put in whatever that task is, and then just say, AI for private practice or something, and
Yeah.
see what comes up.
Hmm.
There's a lot out there, but even just spending 10 minutes looking at what are the solutions available for one particular thing I need help with, that can be a great starting point because you can have it kind of in the back of your mind that those tools are available. And if any of them look really appealing, a lot of them have free trials or demos or other ways that you can kind of get started with them with pretty kind of low barrier to entry. So that's where I like to recommend people start.
That sounds like a good piece of advice. Just, you know what? Just jump into the pool, start swimming around a little bit, stay in the shallow end so you don't drown. But I mean, start experimenting, and it'll start to make sense. Excellent. Rachel, thank you for taking the time to come on Practice Care. Hugely informative. You have a lot going on. I know this, so I really appreciate you carving out some time for us.
Thanks so much for having me. I really enjoyed our discussion.
Absolutely, me too. And all the contact information that you provided, including your website address, we're going to get into the show notes for your episode. So anybody who wants to get a hold of you, see a demo, see a trial, ask questions, now you have another way to connect with Rachel. A couple of points before we wrap up. First, if you are someone like Rachel or I who seeks to serve private practice owners, or if you are a private practice owner yourself, either way, you've got some experience on the business side of practice that you think other practice owners would benefit from, please, we want you to come on Practice Care and tell the world about it. In the show notes for Rachel's episode and every episode, there's a link, couple of clicks, tell us what's on your mind so we can get you scheduled quickly. And finally, please subscribe to Practice Care. Just search Practice Care, one word, you'll find us. We do a new episode every week, and the easiest way to stay up to date with them is to subscribe. So please do so right away. Thanks very much, and until next time.